Hi, I'm Dustin Luecke. Welcome to another edition of Hometown Conversations. We're working to bring together community members to speak freely and openly about ways we can all make real, lasting change in our community. We want to be a platform of education, understanding, and empathy. Here we are with Shai and Maya from Hope Restores Incorporated. Thank you both for joining us for this hometown conversation.
Thank you.
For a little bit of background, I guess, tell us about about Hope Restores, about this fairly new initiative working toward greater equity in our area.
Absolutely. Hope Restores is a resource center for African Americans. It's part of our commitment to bring on diversity and help with the equity that's kind of missing in this area. We've been a part of this community. I've been a part of this community for about 21 years now. And so there's definitely a need for it. And so being here and operating kind of in this platform and in this realm, we saw something that we could do and we're doing it.
Yeah, it's only been since November that this has been around. I guess how did it get started?
Sure. Do you want to tell about it?
Yeah, I'll tell about that. So pretty much after the George Floyd murder, and then all the protesting, the community was just kind of really upset about what happened. Here in La Crosse, the group Black Student Leaders, they did a lot of protesting, and as a group of youth, and they were screaming out that they needed more support from adults, and more like feeling protected from adults here in La Crosse. They were sharing their stories about their struggles at school and, the lack of equality that they face every day. And then we just kind of heard their voices. We also heard the voices of African American community here in La Crosse just saying hey, we don't really have a community. We have no connection. We don't know where to go when we have issues. And then our allies and white people are saying the same thing, hey, what do we do? We want to help. We want to make a change. So what should we do? How do we use our white privilege to help? And then we just kind of listened to the needs of the people, and we came up with Hope Restores. So that's kind of our history.
Yeah, and I think our Hometown Conversation series we've been doing since last June, it was kind of born out of that outcry for something to provide a platform. And now, where we are with the trial going on, I mean, you mentioned the outcry after the murder of George Floyd. Now with the trial going on, do you feel like we're at something of a turning point?
No, I wouldn't say that. I would definitely say that there's been some steps made there's been some loud waves that's been made, right? But I think that we still have a very, very long way to go. And it's going to take commitment on everyone's part. I believe that equity is not something that you just kind of sit back and hope that happens. It's something that everyone has to actively sign up for. So us as African Americans, we have to actively sign up for doing our part with, not only just being allies with our counterparts, but then also offering that support that African Americans so need to do that healing that needs to get done. And then I also think that when it comes to our counterparts, they have a job to do too. You can't sit back and hope that this world is going to one day become that place that we're all hoping to, live in, this utopia, right? We have to take on that commitment and act toward it every day. So if that means that you are, making sure that you're speaking up when a service associate or someone comes and helps you before they help that Black person that's been standing there waiting, which we've experienced a lot of times in this community. If it means speaking up when you hear or see that something's done wrong, we have to stop being complacent and we have to stop shaking our head going, yeah, that's really unfortunate that those things happen. And we need to start recognizing the power that's within inside of us, and that's what's within inside of you as well. We all have a role to do. And once we start signing up for that and courageously taking on that role, this world is going to be so beautiful. And I cannot wait to live in that world.
So we talked about building connections already, and that's kind of the background of Hope Restores. Can you tell us a little bit about some of the ways you're looking to do that?
Yeah, so one thing we're doing is we're trying to bridge that gap between the African American community in the local service here in La Crosse. So we have a few programs we can tell you guys about. One of the programs that we have is our drop-in childcare. So one of the barriers are childcare, like how do you, get to a quick job interview or, go take a test or, school test or something you need to do or, like therapy appointment, So we have a drop-in care. You can drop in for about 2 hours, bring your little one while you go take care of your business. Another program we have is our transportation. There's a lot of food deserts here in La Crosse, so areas where there are no grocery stores that are affordable. Like there are Quick Trips, we love Quick Trip, but an actual grocery store where you can get all your groceries. And then we also have issues with our buses. They don't run late during the weekends. And then there's issues with the taxi company. They're pretty busy. And so our transportation will pick people up and take them to the grocery store, maybe a doctor's appointment, maybe a therapy appointment. We try to help as much as we can with that as well. And then another program we have is our Black Student Leaders. So they actually have an office there, and they are, I would say they're young advocates, they are protesters, and they're future leaders. They are out fighting for the rights of teenagers and elementary school kids, and just speaking up against lack of equality. They're demanding that people understand the culture, and they are educating their educators about the Black community. And so they're with us too, and they do a lot of cool things here in La Crosse. Let me see.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We offer 2 different support groups. So one of them is for the men, and that one is Brothers Battling Barriers. And with that group, we have 4 facilitators that come alongside and really help the men to tackle some of those big core issues that have presented themselves as barriers for them. And they just kind of work through all a part of that healing process that we got to get through, right? And then the other support group that we offer is for the women, and that one is Women of Melanin. It very much so mimics that men's group in a lot of the same way. The only difference is that it creates a sisterhood. So, with your barriers that you have and bring to the group, we work through those together. Each one of the programs are strategically have a different theme for us to go over and work on. So we work on entrepreneurship, we work on financial literacy, we work on self-awareness and healing, a lot of things that often in the Black community you just don't get time to address because you're so busy just trying to get through day to day, and then you wash, repeat, and start all over with all of your traumas and things that you took from the day before, and you try to just keep going. And so we're trying to teach one another how to set those traumas down and start to work through them so the healing process can actually begin. Aside from that, we also offer a mini pantry. So it's not huge, but any of the things that you might need to make a meal for your family, toiletries, things that we run out of, paper towel, toothpaste, all those things that are necessary, and it just might be helpful to grab it from there, while you're at Hope Restores, possibly getting help with that childcare for 2 hours so you can make it to your appointment, getting help in your support group. So there's a lot of things that Hope Restores really does and comes along with. One of the biggest things that we do as far as the connectivity piece with Hope Restores is we're teaching our community how to be allies and how to interconnect and work well with each other. And we do that through the diversity training program that we offer. With that, we go out and we teach on, what are some common things that we don't think of when we say them, right? Some unconscious biases, to put it politely, and then we work on making those things visible, making those things known, so we can start to move forward for one, but then also stop doing it, right? Because it's really important to stop the traumatizing. So it's really all from a place of love. It's from a place of connectivity and just moving forward in that way. We actually just joined together on a a project with the Waking Up White Collaborative and the Lacrosse Diversity Council, and that was called Amplifying Black Voices, where they interviewed the students in the lacrosse area and then their parents. Maya and I were actually on that, a part of that project, and it was just so much to be learned and to be taken from that with the Amplifying Black Voices. So there's definitely a lot that we're trying to do, and we're getting out there and being active, and we want to get it back out there, to the community and get it back out there to everybody. So yeah, we're very excited about the work that we're doing.
Yeah, I mean, it's work that needs to be done, especially here in La Crosse area. There was no place for Black people to go to have somebody support them in a cultural way, like in a way that they felt comfortable and understood and not misjudged. And a lot of people don't understand that, but you got to still understand that we are different, and we have a different approach, and so there are some great services here in La Crosse, and our job is just to kind of connect those services with the community, and we are there to back up the people in our community and make sure that they are getting serviced and make sure that people are understanding them and that they feel comfortable. Yeah, we have met a lot of great people on our path. Bridges Church has been awesome. They literally have just reached out to us with nothing but love. A lot of different services have reached out to us. I feel like everybody wants the same thing. They just didn't know what to do.
Absolutely.
And we just kind of took that on, like we hear you, let's make something happen. Because we never planned to do this. It just fell in our laps. And we are very obedient, so we decided to jump right into it. And I mean, it's very passionate work that we're doing, and something that we love. And we're just making a difference. And like I said, I have 4 children, and Shai has 2, and they grew up here in La Crosse. And our kids have went through a few things, and it's like, as a parent, when you hear that your children are hurting, it's like you have to do something about it. But here in La Crosse, as a community, we have to work together to make sure when these kids are going to school, they're getting an education, not being re-traumatized, not feeling like they have to fight, it's hard to learn when you're not comfortable, or when you feel like somebody doesn't understand you, or you just feel judged,
School's hard enough.
Oh, yeah. I mean, just teenage age is hard enough. Right. So just imagine, and I always talk about bullying. Like when you see somebody's bullying, you need to step in. And that's how I feel about the African American community. If you see that we're being bullied, step in, say something, use the privilege that you have, if you have it. Does that not, if you have the white privilege and you're white, use it, Say something. I just get involved, Don't just watch the news series and say, oh, that's sad, and oh, that made me feel this way today. Do something about it, take action for sure. That's the thing. We all need to start taking action and holding ourselves accountable and just changing the dynamics for this new generation, because this new generation is awesome. They are not trying to put up with this. Everybody's coming in different formats and just ready to, express themselves. So it's we need to get rid of these old biases that we have blocking them and allow them to come out and just shine, and it's take action, say something, so.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I find it fascinating that we're here at Bridges Church too, because it seems like you saw that there was this one side that was crying out for it, this needs to change, this other side that's how do we change it? And you built that bridge in a way through this program. Does that feel like a responsibility now?
I don't think it necessarily feels like a responsibility. Honestly, it feels like more of a calling, which sits a little bit differently with you. It really gives you a sense of pride, and it gives you a sense of hope, right?
Hope is in the name, after all.
Hope restores. And the really beautiful thing is, you have people on both sides saying, we need this support, we need this help, and the other people are saying, well, how do we help? And we're seeing exactly how beautiful this community can really be, when they're coming alongside and they're saying, hey, I have a building, if you can come and meet here and do, your interview, or however I can help, there's another church on the north side, Bountiful Faith of Harvest, they stepped up and said, hey, any way that I can help, let us come along and help out in this way. And so there really are a lot of different avenues and a lot of different ways that you can help. We are 100% run off of donations, and so that is one way to step up and help at www.hoperestoreswi.org. So you can always go on there and donate. You can always reach out and email us. We have opportunities for allies. There's just so many. And if you're ready to be a part of the work that we're doing, we are so ready to have you.
Yeah, join in. Like I always say, don't talk about it, be about it, you know? So be about that change, you know? See what you can do. Call us up. We are friendly. And we need help. This is not a just us issue. This is an everybody issue. And so anybody can contribute, you know. So just give us a call, you know. Go to our website. Donations always help. Just support and, you know, passing on the word, you know, to everybody that we're here, that we're ready to help. So yeah.
Yeah, and you do have a physical location.
We do.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're located at 231 Copeland Ave on the north side there at the bottom of the viaduct. Big brown house on the corner. So, and we are open regular hours from 8 to 5. And then, like I said, we do have certain groups that will take us on longer. But for the public, we do have general hours that we're open. And we always invite people to stop down, check us out, come and see what we're doing, what we're about. We'd love to tell you about ourselves.
Yeah. Now, one thing I want to touch on that you both kind of brought up, this idea of privilege, and this is something that I've been sitting with for this past year and trying to understand more how that has affected my life. And just, I think one of the biggest takeaways from something I've read was that I and white people tend to have the ability to not have to address the issue of race every day, and that's one of the biggest privileges. Can you I mean, what does it mean to you to have to deal with that every sort of day? Can you give us an idea of how we can better understand just that simple thing?
Yeah. Let me see, I can think of a few examples. One thing, I always tell this story about going shopping as a child at Toys R Us. I don't know if they have those anymore, but like, it's just a big deal to go there. And then when you go in Toys R Us, you're a little girl and you're looking for a baby doll. So I was with my mom and I'm looking for a baby doll. We look all over the aisles. There was not one baby doll that looked like me. No Barbie, no baby doll, nothing. And we just kept looking and kept looking. I mean, something just that simple is that what we see never reflects us, you know? And I had to connect with the white Barbie most of my life, and that's who I had to like play with and look up to. And it was funny because like it was in this area, like Wisconsin area, that there just was no black baby dolls available. And that I call that the white privilege is because like the norm is to have a white baby doll, and it was unnormal to have a black baby doll. But my family are people of the community, so you would think that the baby dolls would reflect us as well. And so that's kind of an example of like just normal day-to-day white privilege. Then another thing I would think about is just the trauma of not feeling like you fit in, or that you have to change yourself to be like everybody else, you know? And so like it's like you're not accepted for just the black culture. It's you have to live up to the white culture all the time. So that's another thing that I got affected with, kind of like being in the area as well. I mean, it's just area in general, I would say.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things that comes to mind for me is when you are going to a place to either apply for a job or be interviewed, and if you look around the room and there is more than one black person there, you know that it's gonna, if you do get the job, you're not both gonna get the job. So there's that huge kind of letdown, you know. There is that guilt of knowing that if one of us gets it, the other one is going to be out. And you look through and you start taking a look at these companies, and it becomes very, very clear, chances are, if there is a minority there, there's only one or two, and it certainly does not represent the population that's here. And proportionate terms. And so it's always disheartening to know that, so if you do have a shot, you certainly don't both have a shot, It is the going into schools and going out and shopping or interacting and needing to almost shed your ethnicity in order to make your counterparts more comfortable. It's a lot. It's the censoring the things that you say before you speak because you don't want to alarm anyone. People tend to be very comfortable with what they're comfortable with, and you typically need to adjust to that. So it's very hard to always
puts
have
an additional burden
yeah,
on you.
absolutely, to always need to shed those parts of you. It gets very, very difficult, and so we have a lot of work to do.
Yeah, and I think one of the things you both mentioned too is that there is an onus on us as white people to do this work, to educate ourselves about that, because it's not your responsibility to educate us. It's you should be able to share your culture with us, and we should be able to better accept that. I guess, what sort of things would you like to see us talk about more as white people?
Absolutely. I appreciate that question.
Exactly.
I think you said it right there. Start educating yourselves. It's about being open and willing to first have the conversation and then have the courage to stay in the room, because that's where the growth happens, right? When that discomfort kicks in, if you just stay in the room and you sit in it, you'll see that everything that we're trying to accomplish, it is probably the exact same thing. And all we're asking is for you to have the courage to take the time to understand. And so it's not, a lot of people think that it's white against black, and that's not it at all. And that's what you learn when you sit in the room for a little bit longer. It's about both of us achieving equality. It's not you or I, it's us, Right. And so that really makes a huge difference. So when you start to self-educate, and you start to be courageous enough to seek with the goal of truly understanding or hearing where that other person is coming from, I think that there is a lot of growth to be had on both parts, and there's a lot of appreciation to share in, to remain in that conversation, because I think for a lot of African Americans, we're so used to being the ones that have to do the work. We're so used to being the ones that have to say, oh, it's okay. That was super racist, and I'm really not okay with it, but you didn't mean it.
Things, like small things that you don't think about.
Right.
Exactly.
Right. So yeah, the self-educating is a really huge one. There are tons of books and stuff that are out there that'll really let you know. I recently just read a book by Debbie Irving, and that was The Waking Up White. And she really does do a great job kind of painting that picture and illuminating what's meant by white privilege. A lot of people get privilege mistaken for, you were born with a silver spoon, or you have all of these extra things or all of these extra money, when in fact, that's not what privilege is at all. Privilege is simply, you having access to things that the other person does not, simply by being in the skin that you're in. And so that's the big difference, is being aware of it and accepting that that is your reality. And the only time that reality is a bad thing or it's not okay is when you're being complacent and you're doing nothing with it, because having that privilege certainly is a real thing.
Yeah, one of my favorite teachers growing up always told me, his phrase was, "It's not your fault, but it is your problem."
Oh, I love that.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that speaks to me so much more even now with looking at it. And with dealing with that, I mean, from the position we're in the media, what would you like to see in terms of representation and being able to share these stories more?
Yeah. One thing I like to see is for the curriculum to be updated, for sure. Black people are a part of America, so it should be American history, and you should see pictures of us and the things that we did to contribute to this country. The same old slave movies that we watch in school, the same old curriculum, it's re-traumatizing. And our kids are watching the same and learning the same things that we learned about Black people in school, and nothing's changed. So we need to update a curriculum, and we need to be involved in the history of America in a positive way, not just that we were slaves. That's one of the biggest things I'd like for people to work on is the curriculum in the schools. Another thing, like Shai said, be ready to let your guard down, have this conversation, stop being defensive and listen. Keep those buts out. Like when you get ready to listen, just listen. Don't say, but that didn't happen, but I can't believe I can't. And it's like if a rape victim was sitting there and told you she got raped, are you going to be like, well, I can't believe that happened, not at my school. Yeah, she told you it happened, so listen, and it's like, we get that a lot. It's like, I can't believe that happened, no, and then just imagine for these kids how hard that is for them. So when they use their voices to open up and tell you what's wrong, and then you turn them around because you just don't want to believe it, or you don't want to believe that your teacher that's been there for 20 years would actually have been racist or biased, listen. Open up and listen. Be ready to listen, and then make some steps to make some change, and that's pretty much one thing that would really help us, listening to us. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think that for me, one of the big things that I would like to see with the media side of it is I'd really like you guys to challenge the sphere of influence that you have. I'd like to see you guys taking on more of the diversity angles. I'd like to see you, reaching, you already have so much reach, right? So to see you guys out doing these interviews, to see you guys maybe doing, the diversity training on the TV, talking about what you got from it and continuing to encourage other people to do the same thing. It's all about, what are our spheres of influence? And we all have them, everything from, at home, which is where it starts, right? Yes, so sure. I would love to see the media do that, but Justin, I would love to see you do it with your family and with your kids, start talking about diversity. One of the best things that you can do for us is start acknowledging us, so when we hear comments like, oh, I don't even see color. Well, that hurts. That hurts so deeply because it means that you are now denying me of who I am, and you're trying to connect with me after that denial, and like you've already done so much to shed me, and now here's this extra jab. So start having those conversations with your kids. It's okay, for a child to say, Dad, why is she darker? Or, answer those questions. Yeah. Well, son, she's Black, and that's okay. We're not offended. We know we're Black. It's not a bad thing. And so encourage those conversations with your kids at home. Start reading books with people that don't look like them. Get them ready for being out there in the real world, because those are the kids that are going to grow up with our kids. And if we don't start putting some things in place, then it's just going to continue on, what we're trying to fight for. And I think that's a really strong place to start. So start at home, start with your spheres of influence, and just challenge yourself to continue to be active and commit to driving diversity. That's the biggest thing that you can do for me.
That idea of just thinking that we can fix from our perspective, we don't have the same perspective. We haven't grown up in the same backgrounds, but I think that's a lot of what we see is the white community saying, okay, we know, we'll just do this and it'll all be better. But that's not going to work, is it?
No. No, it's not going to work. The best thing that works is really communicating and talking to people and finding out what they need. And they will tell you exactly what they need, and that's the best way. Go in there with an open mind and the willingness to listen. They'll tell you how to be a part of it and get to a better place.
I say understanding the disadvantage too, and then when you understand that, allow the community to rebuild itself. So when you say, how do you want to help? Ask us what you can do to help, see how you can insert yourself into the movement of change, but not controlling the change. So that's
Absolutely.
a big thing.
Seek to understand,
Yeah,
for sure.
exactly.
Seek to understand. I can remember being in one of my college classes, and we were having this open discussion, and it was about, inequality and everything else. And one guy goes, well, I just don't see the problem. I think, no offense, but I think that Black people have had every opportunity as everyone else if they just work hard enough, and it was like, that was truly what he thought. And in his mind, that really was all that it came down to. And I had to, explain to him the 400-year head start that his family had. And, our counterparts had. I had to explain to him how wealth works. I had to explain to him how you can use land to leverage things and own things and get more. And I had to explain to him how we couldn't do that. And I had to explain to him the difference between a white guy and a Black guy both making $50,000 a year, and exactly the difference between how far that $50,000 will get them when it comes down to interest rates and bias lending and discrimination, and to have to constantly give that history lesson and break things down, that's exhausting too. And so that's why I really appreciate when you said, we just got to start learning, and it's so true. You really have to take the time to get out there and start learning, seek to understand, where is this coming from? When did the divide happen, and why is it not coming back together, right? So there's a lot of information out there, and it's just waiting for everybody to come and utilize it. So for sure.
Do that. Educate yourself. I think about historical trauma, and we forget about that with the African American community. But look that up and just do the math for yourself, and then you can see where the head start that a white person would have from us. We forget about that trauma. And the problem is that we still experience that trauma on a daily basis, and it's
not just history.
Yeah, it's not just history. It's continued, and it's passed on to our kids. And when your child is at school and they're called the N-word, or their teacher is point blank just racist, that traumatizes the parent, and it keeps you from living that life that you want to live, is because you're feeling that you can't protect your child. So it's like, we have that historical trauma, we're still dealing with trauma. Mm-hmm. So educate yourself, and then you can be a little bit more sensitive and understanding to that person that you feel that's, well, what's the difference? Just work harder. You wouldn't say those things out of your mouth because you would have some understanding of, what exactly we're going through. So yeah.
And recognize that trauma looks different. Trauma looks different for everyone. Another author that I really like is Joy DeGroy, and she wrote a book called Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome. And in that book, she talks about the things that we've gone through and how it's traumatic for us, but it's also traumatic for white people, because she goes into the desensitization that's been learned over time, and she has pictures of different instances that's happening, and you don't recognize a lot of it. I think that Debbie Irving hits on that. You don't recognize a lot of the ways that you've kind of had this sheet over your eyes, right? When you're dealing with different situations, and you just go, oh, that's too bad. Oh, I'm sure that they just didn't, do something right, or they're just overly sensitive, and it's all that desensitization that you have to take time to break that down and seek to understand and get at the root cause of it.
Yeah, so Waking Up White, Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome, those are some good resources for people to check out.
Just a couple starters for you, absolutely.
Yeah. And obviously we don't have the time to maybe get into a full diversity training for employers, but what is something an employer could do to make their workplace more welcoming and embrace the cultural differences?
I think the biggest thing that the workplaces could do is look around and take inventory. Who's working for me? Where's the diversity in here? Why is it, what's the problem here? When you start to look at, when we're doing our hiring, even though we're not saying anything racist, or we're not saying anything that's non-inclusive, or we have to take a look at why is it that we keep hiring the same way? You know, you ask two people the same question, why is it that we're liking this answer so much more? And a lot of times it comes down to those blind biases that we're not aware of. You know, we tend to hire what's familiar, and a lot of times what's familiar is what looks like you. And so we have to challenge ourselves to start hiring outside of what looks like us. It's been proven time and time again that diversity adds richness to any and every culture. You know, there's always things to pull from it. So if you keep coming up with the same batch or the same pool, you're going to remain in the same place. And so it's one thing to speak about diversity, but it's another thing to look around and say, hey, does our organization stand up to the diversity challenge? And if not, well, then it's time to start taking a look at, you know, what are we doing wrong and what things can we put in place? And if it's a blind bias, what are some ways that we can stop from having that blind bias? You know, how do we correct that?
And that's where Hope Restores comes in to help with stuff like that. That's great to hear that we have such a resource like this in the community now to help bridge that gap from the people who want to try to do the work and the people who need the work to be done to make this a more equitable community for all of us. So is there anything either of you would like to leave us with?
I would just say thank you guys. This means a lot to us. You're making the first step by coming here and listening to our voices and putting it out for everybody else to hear us. So yeah, I say thank you.
And I'd like to say I challenge you. I challenge you to take action. I dare you to take action. It's up to you. This is an us problem. Yeah. This is us, and we are the only ones that's going to solve it together and collectively. So I throw it back to you guys. I challenge you guys. Help us. Help us with this inequality issue.
The most important step is the next step.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Shai, Maya, thank you for being with us.
Thank you.